Hello and welcome to the Anomaly Project, The Agenda, the show where we look ahead to our upcoming episode. I'm Marcus Lowth, and joining me as he does every week is Steve Mera. Now, Steve, how you doing? It's going to be
I'm
another
doing well.
great show.
I- Yeah, it is, and our guest he's somebody I've known for a long time, and I've lectured alongside him. We've been on investigations, Skywatchers, you name it. He's a great guy. He's done some fundamental work. I mean, have had access to some of his research, and the good thing is that he's always willing to share it, which is really important. And he's always working at something about how to share that information the best way as well.
Yeah,
So it's fascinating to me that somebody can dedicate such a long time to the study of one particular area, just ufology. But anybody that's spent enough time in this field will realize the crossovers into other areas. And it's the same no matter who, you spend enough time in the subject, you kind of have this epiphany one day. Oh, well, that's a bit strange. Kind of all connected in some way. And I find that quite a lot. So it's always interesting to talk with people that have those moments.
yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, we'll be speaking with Dave Hodrien from the Birmingham UFO group. And like you say, he's been researching for, I wouldn't say under the radar either, because people know who
No,
he is.
no.
But,
Oh, yeah.
he's doing some solid work. And yeah, like you've just said, he shares his information. He's looking for patterns, which is something that we'll appreciate because that's exactly what
Yeah.
we do.
The data is really important because things get missed.
Yeah.
I mean, when you've been in the subject a while and you've got so many investigations, sometimes people just don't think to, let's just do a cross, connection of data here, see what might strike out as something relevant. Sometimes there's some real good nuggets that are discovered. It could just be like weather conditions at the time of incidents or certain times of the year. Or is it
Yeah.
certain times of astronomical things that are taking place? Or is it in certain areas local to airports or military bases? Why do certain people have experiences? Why do others never have experiences? I think a lot of data can be obtained from once you start bringing all this information together in one sort of database and
Mm.
start pinpointing certain little graphs and things will show you
Yeah,
over
yeah.
a period of time little spikes of information which you have never ever considered until you actually start putting all this data together. That's one thing I know he's actually working on at this moment in time.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, you can't spot the patterns until you've got the data, and that's not just data that you're working with on a personal level. I mean, you need to, acknowledge the data that's gone before because
Yeah,
you don't know the patterns until, for example, you don't know that no source, not you personally, but people who are into this don't know that no source lighting is a thing until you
yeah.
see that crop up in reports and stuff, things of that nature. So, yeah, data is so important. We seem to have spoken about this a lot recently about the importance of
Well, I
data,
came
actually.
across little things like this years ago, and I was looking at some other organizations and researchers working data collection and
Hmm.
putting graphs together. And one of those things was how many people are having close encounter experiences when the pet's with them.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And just a little thing like that, you think, well, that's interesting. Why are they not? Because I mean, you might get just the odd few or something, but generally speaking, it's like, no, it's not
Mm.
when your pet's with you for sort of walking your dog or something like. It's usually when they're not. It's
It's
and why,
it's funny you mention about pets there, right? Because this happened to us the other day. Our little dog Kenny, he just suddenly started barking his head off at the back door. He was focused on something. It's the middle of the day.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
yeah,
dark or anything. Focused on something. I'm saying to Tracy, it'll be a fly, it'll be a bee, it'll be
yeah.
something's there, but there was nothing there. And we sort of come away, come on. And he came away for a second, but then he'd go back, and he again same focus. So because we've been speaking about this stuff, I made
Yeah,
a note of that, the
yeah.
time, what day it was, what was happening at
Mm.
sort of thing. Were the neighbours in the garden? There wasn't. Just that kind of thing.
Well,
And if
yeah.
it
I
happens
mean,
again, then you
it's
start to think,
strange, isn't
oh,
it? I mean,
yeah.
it does the phenomena particularly say if it's going to go after somebody, you know, does it particularly wait for moments when you've not got something with you that can alert you to things that you might not be able to normally see and hear?
Mhm.
Did he wait for opportune moments?
Yeah, yeah.
Things like that will show up in data if you gather the information, do statistics across it. It's little nuggets like that are really interesting. They fascinate me.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've mentioned before, I've got a friend who's his whole life is statistics and data. He just loves this stuff. And not just paranormal, but anything. He'll compile things like to do with accidents. certain times of accidents, and not necessarily there'll be a paranormal reason behind it. He'll be saying, well, there's more accidents in the morning because people are tired, and
Yeah,
it's just simple things like that. But
yeah.
sometimes you'll come to a bit more of a profound conclusion. So yeah, data collection, data analysis, it's a job in itself, isn't it? And we could probably do with people doing this really on
Really is. You've
all of
got
our
to
behalf.
you've got to have a vast amount of data, which means you've got to put the time in to gather the data
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah,
you'll never find statistics otherwise. But some really good stuff has come out over the years where you think, okay, I mean, it started years back with Jenny Randall's and the Oz Factor
yes,
experience. Peter Huff termed a phrase as well called the umbrella of perception. So there's this umbrella of perception that might change during your experience. And it's surprisingly that those people that have these strange encounters, there's always something not quite right.
mm,
If you know what I'm trying, if anybody
yeah.
researchers out there, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Something isn't quite right. Why is it not quite right? Why do we not have like a normal encounter? Well, not it's not normal, of course, a profound encounter under normal statistics, under normal thing. There's always something odd about them. It doesn't fit right. Something's off.
Yeah, it's like you're saying, and I know some personal experience. It's usually something you can't quite put your finger on,
That's
as well.
right.
Like you say, you just know something's not correct, and
Yeah.
I mean, I'll sure speak to Dave about hypnotic regression because that's a tool that a lot of people will turn to unlock these sort of things. I'll be honest, I kind of think it's valid. I'm not one of those that no, because it's been
No,
used
no.
in court and stuff like that. So I believe it's valid to a degree. It kind of scares me though for myself to undergo that because I think I don't want people to mess with the mind. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's the
So
problem. I think when people are having these physiological experiences, I think there's an aspect of psychological interference as well. It's
yeah,
taking
yeah,
place. I mean, even to the point of not having a memory recall, we could say, well, the brain does a natural thing of protecting us. Such as if we were in a traumatic car
yeah,
crash, we
yeah.
might not remember it because the brain goes, I don't want to put you through that. Let's take the memory away. I understand that. Is that what's actually happening when people have these traumatic experiences with the paranormal or ufological stuff that they don't have a good memory recall? Or is it just basically it's so that the phenomena can remain clandestine and not give away its secrets so that you don't remember everything? It's hard to know.
It's a tough one. Going back to patterns, this leads me nicely into this actually. This just cropped up in my mind. So we're on about missing time, alien abductions, and stuff. Obviously, I think we'll speak about that too. But you mentioned there about the phenomena, whatever it is, almost doesn't always want you to remember. And I can probably list about half a dozen cases off the top of my head and come up with at least 20 others of alien abductions, or not even abductions necessarily,
Mm,
close encounters where people are given usually a clear drink. These
yeah,
abductees are given a clear drink and they are specifically told you must drink that because
yeah,
you can't remember. It'll block out the memory. They're not always told
yeah,
why. I know
yeah.
of one case where the guy said he took a sip and then just left it and didn't drink it all. And he managed to remember bits. I don't know if I buy that. I don't know. But
Well, and that could be
the
part and
notion of, like you
parcel.
say, screening memories is a real
It
one.
could be part and parcel of the whole confusion idea that they don't really need to give you a drink. They can manipulate your mind in. But let's do that anyway because it's just mass confusion and an
Yeah, it's
absurd.
just more data
It
again, isn't it?
is, but there's people which have had joint experiences and had various different memories about it.
Mm,
And that's what's really confusing. So I would definitely say there's some aspect of this which messes not only with the physicality of our reality of those experiences, but all the psychology of that as well. And
mm.
because people just will not sometimes ever wrap their heads around it. But maybe that's what they do. I mean, we've talked before about, they don't seem to follow that a general path as you
No.
like an explorer comes from another planet to visit a planet and they go about a certain things. Does nothing ever fits the actual criteria of a gender really. It's like it's a bit of big mystery and it's got to be trickster elements to it, confusion, absurdity, so that we can't really understand what's going on. And maybe that's just the way they work. Maybe that they work in secrecy because I am sure the phenomena, just like many people probably in the high governments, don't want disclosure. They're not coming down, and they could do this today and it'd be
Mm,
all over with.
mm, mm.
But they're not, and they don't want to. And if they've been at this for a long time, since they've been here for seemingly forever, that's their operation. That's the way they work. They want to be in the shadows and cause confusion. And that does seem to be the situation.
Yeah, you're right there. I mean, as you say, I mean, if we're dealing with, excuse me, aliens or interdimensional creatures, they could appear at any, en masse. I mean, to the world en masse at
It
any
could
moment.
happen.
So
It could happen today, and that'll be the end of it.
yeah, exactly, and
But they
it's
don't
part of our
want that. I
reality.
don't
Yeah.
think they don't want it.
What
And
what I what I find interesting on this is, and we spoke about this before, these connections between secret societies, rituals. It almost, it almost appears as if these secret societies, these people that control the world, if they exist, and I'm sure they do,
mm,
even if it's just a loose gathering of people, it's almost as if they are aware of this and they're using this phenomenon to their own ends. And part of me thinks, is that as much of a reason to not disclose what's going on as anything else?
well, no, I don't think anybody. I don't really think anybody's got all the answers. To be honest with you, I
No,
think we
no.
like to. I think some people like to think that we do, but we don't. There's no way we can even wrap our heads around some of the physics that's involved in this, let alone trying to figure everything else out.
Yeah.
But there are people which maybe think to tap the source in some way. How can we make this beneficial for us? Can we end up in communications? What can we get from this phenomena? How can we use this or profit from it? I think we're living in days, and I think Dave Hodrien would agree that that this is confusing times because
Mhm.
there does seem to be people that might be profiteering from this, be it weaponizing it or utilizing it for one thing or another. Eventually, passes down to the general public in God knows how many years' time.
Yeah, yeah.
But it does seem that seems to be the case in many instances.
Yeah, it's like you said. I mean, I remember hearing a quote, and I can't remember who said it, but it was along the lines of, whatever the public has available to them behind closed doors are 30, 40 years ahead.
Oh,
And there's
probably
probably a
even
lot of
more.
truth. Yeah, there's probably a lot of
Yeah.
truth in that. I think one thing I do find interesting, if there's any credence to recovered UFOs or just technology that's been arrived at through nefarious means or unconventional means, that, you know, these, how do I word this? That these yeah,
Mm.
these companies are always private, basically.
Oh
They're
yeah.
not like they're not government companies. So the
No.
key thing there is that they escape Freedom of Information Acts. So that's
Yes.
got to be a very purposeful move on
Oh
whoever is
yeah.
pulling the strings there, because they can develop things and not have to give any information to the
They're
public
not
whatsoever.
under the rules. No, I mean, I think these companies, they're hugely financed.
Yeah,
There are billions and billions of dollars in the US, that these companies are worth. Yet they have their own clandestine ways of doing things and getting things, and sometimes you think it would just let people just say, "Oh, it's the military or the government." Not necessarily. There might be factions of them, but I think in some cases we're dealing with high security, very well trained individuals working for corporate companies and defense agencies which are not tied in with the government directly, so they don't have to abide by the same rules and principles.
yeah, I completely agree, and it makes you wonder. I mean, without drifting into New World Order territory, because we don't want to really drift into that, but it makes
Mm.
you wonder whether these individuals aren't actually working for one country or another, but they're actually cross borders, and there's an elite that literally controls the
Could
world,
be.
for want of a better phrase. I
Well,
mean,
yeah, I mean, it has been supposed a few times. But when we
mm,
talk about the alien abduction phenomenon, because this is where I guess Dave Hodrien specialised. I mean, I
yeah,
passed cases on to him of these type of incidents. I pass it over today because he specialises in that key area. He does some really good research and he's very thorough. So I've done that for quite some years, passed information over to him, or people have contacted me about experiences. When I talk about this in many other places, abduction phenomena, most people will recall kind of came on the scene in the 80s, tied in with the X-File times and this, that, and the other. In fact, it was illuminated then, but there
mm,
was phenomena taking place. The forced abduction, alien abduction of individuals goes back many, many years, but they
oh
do
yeah,
vary. They're not always been alien greys. There was something else and then something else.
mm,
Sometimes it was done through a form of more contact type cases. And this is where it became very confusing because what's the difference between a contactee and an abductee? Well, an abductee is forcefully taken
yeah, yeah,
against their will, but a contactee might be coerced or through process of long-term communication, which might end up in the same result,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but in a different way. So the research and the investigations had to change to allow that recognition that it's not C3, C4. and then into alien abduction. It's like, yeah, you've got to split that four. You've got to say, oh, there's contactees,
Hmm.
people which are chosen for some reason, and then there are those which are just kind of the abductees sort of thing, which really go hand in hand. You have to investigate them in the same manner, but the process is a little bit different.
Yeah, no, I think you're right with that. I mean, the alien abduction. I know people think of Betsy and Barney Hill or Antonio
Yeah.
Boas in '57, but it goes back much further. And that's okay, we can go back to ancient times and blah blah blah. But I know of a case in 1917 in Finland. I think the lady's name was Annie Latu, and she disappeared. This is documented as well. She
Mhm.
disappeared for about 5 or 6 days, and when she came back, she said she described. I can't remember the word for it in Finnish, but what she was describing was a disc that came down, and
Yeah.
she described these strange beings that she called like demons and devils and big black eye. Basically, she described a grey alien,
Yeah.
and this was 1917.
I know.
And so there'll be cases before that too. I mean, how many cases throughout history over the centuries where people have literally described demons, devils? It could be the
Yeah.
exact same
Well, yeah, I mean,
creatures.
the alien abduction, I mean, if you were to talk about abduction by non-human entities, goes back
Mm.
hundreds and hundreds of years
Oh
throughout
yeah,
Irish folklore and myths, legends. It's actually even documented on official records in the Dublin archives, in
yeah,
Ireland. These incidents took place and people had missing time. Now, there's slight variations in the process of what these things look like and how they went about it, but the ultimate conclusion for the phenomenon is that they did exactly the same, maybe on a slight different guise or whatever what these things are, but it's the same process applied, and sometimes people were missing not just for an hour or two, but sometimes days that
yeah.
actually went past.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you say, and I like that. Annie Latour was days, and Travis Walton. I know that's a famous case, but he was about 5 days missing as well.
Yeah,
So, I mean, alien abduction has definitely been happening for as long as it's been recorded history. It
yeah,
would appear,
yeah.
and before that. So, excuse me, Steve. But after you have to get Dave's thoughts on that because more than anything else. I mean, Why is this taking place? Why are these people being abducted? I know he can't answer that,
Yeah,
but
you can't. It's still happening today, as it has at other times. It's just like it doesn't get popularized very much. I mean, people don't talk about those experiences very often, and when they do come out, then fine. They can be illuminated through the internet and media sources. But it's not like it used to be. I mean, people used to report things a little bit more. I don't think the phenomena subsided. I think the reporting of it has, to be honest with you. I think that's what the situation is.
I think as well. I think one another thing to consider is because I hate the word oversaturation because that's like implying well we don't want loads of
Yeah.
reports. But I think because to most people it's almost normal, even though they might not believe it. But if someone says, "Oh, I was abducted by aliens," it's not. Oh, wow! It's almost like because we speak about it that often,
Yeah.
even if you don't necessarily believe it. So I think that
Mm.
could be a factor in it as well. And if the
Mm.
phenomenon has got intelligence behind it, which it undoubtedly does, then they could be they could be part of
Yeah.
why people are reacting in such a way.
Well,
It's
yeah, I mean, there's even some sort of clues to suggest that sometimes these experiences are genetic in some manner, that,
mm,
it can pass on to the kin and they can become experiences. You talk about the alien abduction line, it seems like, the parents and children and
yeah, yeah,
even, grandchildren in some cases, there's been a lineage of
yeah,
experiments and monitoring of a family line. Now, is that down to bloodline or is it down to something else? That is it something that's genetically in those individuals that they are interested in? We just haven't got all the answers, but the patterns there, you
yeah,
can see that for over 100 years they've followed a family
yeah.
through these experiences, and you think to yourself, well, is it the same phenomenon returning over and over? Has it changed hands? Whatever is it, but nevertheless, though, it's been a long-term study, of a family. For
Mm.
some reason, we just haven't got all the answers yet.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it does seem to be two types of alien abductee. You've got your abductees that are repeat abductees, and 9 times out of 10, as they'll find that they've been abducted before, obviously, but their parents might have been, or their grandparents, and
Yeah.
when you follow somebody and their own children possibly start speaking about strange encounters, then you have your other kind where they seem to be complete one-offs, where
One
maybe
off.
they're on a
Yeah.
lonely road and they just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
well, are
But
they
are
all
they
one offs?
one-offs? Yeah,
I
there you
mean,
go. Are they?
Are they really? I mean, to
Mm,
be honest, we don't know. I mean, the one-offs don't often go for hypnosis,
no, true.
but there has been people who've had experiences. I was driving down the road, I was 35, and this happened, and da da da. And then they go and have some type of hypnotic regression, and they find out, hang on a second, that wasn't my first experience. I was a child
Yeah,
when
yeah.
I first experienced it, and this has been going on for a while, and I never even knew. So are they all one-offs, when people, when they're adults, or I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or does it go back to, yes, they had experiences when they were children, just can't recall them?
Possible.
Maybe that they are introduced at an early age to the phenomena. And then obviously through later life, they might have experiences and have the opportunity for this type of hypnotic regression and start to recall things more than what that was, that just first experience or that last experience and earlier ones that they've had, so it's a kind of a long period of time it's been going on for.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I say, I mean, you can definitely question that. Are they one-off experiences? And if they are one-off experiences, then then I suppose you need to ask, well, why did that happen? You can understand generational ones because
You
obviously it
can,
was, you
yeah.
research and
Is it
agendas.
just wrong place at the wrong time and they took a fancy?
It could be, it could
I
be.
mean, that's kind of human thinking, but maybe, I don't know. It was an opportune moment. But it's not just happening to normal, just average individuals. Sometimes this is happening to military personnel and pilots and scientists as well. It's
Oh, it's
not
across the
often
board.
talked about,
Hmm.
but it's happening to these individuals as well, for sure.
Yeah, I think when you do break down these alien abduction encounters, it's quite clear that it's not one demographic that's being okay, so you can argue that there might be more women than men, but
Yeah,
that's only by slight. And
yeah.
the argument there is it's to do with reproduction and breeding, and that could very well be the case. But yeah, it's not like we've just got professionals, we've just got scientists, or we've just got people from the other end of the ladder. It's
Oh, yeah.
literally across the board, so nobody's safe from this, for want of a better.
No, no, I don't think so. I think if it happens, it happens. It's one of them. I don't think we've seemingly, I don't hear many incidents when they deterred the abduction. I've heard a couple of times that people have dropped to their knees and prayed, and these things it's just ended. But that's what they believe or what they can recall,
Hmm,
of course. Might not necessarily be that. I heard an interesting story where a woman grabbed a pillow and literally knocked one of these greys to the floor,
right.
in the bedroom out of sheer panic. I don't know if that's true or not because they seem to be metaphysical and be able to walk through walls and doors and things. I just don't know. There's not enough of those incidents to say there's a real strong physicality to this.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's like you're in this semi-transparent, dazed state where you're a bit unsure what is real and what isn't real, and it remains that way. It's a bit sort of cloudy. And they do have some memory recall for that. Maybe not all of it, but little bits sometimes sneak through. But it's confusing because they're trying to determine what is real and what isn't. Well, that's how I've always said that, haven't I? Well, what
Yeah.
is real?
Yeah.
I mean, if you can touch it and prod it, it's real. But then the next minute, it can walk through a wall or take you through a
Yeah.
wall as
Yeah.
an abductee, and you
But
think, what the hell?
it seems, I mean, it's clear, not clearly, but it's either some kind of really advanced technology or some kind of advanced ability. Because, like you say, these things can, when they're here, they're flesh and blood, and when they're not, or when they vacate, should I say, then
Mm,
then they become not flesh and blood. Just picking up on what you said there about what is real,
mm.
there's lots of cases, and I think Mac highlighted a lot of these, and David Jacobs did too, where you've got people that think they're standing in front of a UFO,
Yeah,
whatever vehicle it might be, and then they'll just, for want of a better phrase, peek between the veil or behind the veil, and they'll see that it's some kind of military vehicle. It's not a UFO at all, and they
no,
can see military, soldiers, and they're not aliens. Or they might think that they're walking through a forest with a deer, and all of a sudden there's a grain. So there's
that's
a
right.
lot
The
of
the veil thins in places. Yeah.
yeah. So there's a lot of trickster elements, as we've spoken
Well,
about
there
before.
really is. I mean, I remember being in some years ago, I was in Pittsburgh with David Jacobs,
Right.
lovely guy. And I remember asking him, posing this question, is it all physical, you know, or are people taken in a non-physical state, such as how did he get carried through a ceiling or float
Mm.
up to an object? Is it all physical or did he think it is? And because the mind can make it physical, and even to the point where marks and things can appear on you from a
Mm.
physical experience, which really started in the mind.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that from stigmata, don't we? Appearing on the
Mhm.
bodies. It's a physical wound through a non-physical approach. It's from the mind, the belief system. So what is real? This is the problem. Are we taken out of our bodies to have this experience and put back? Or is it really actually is a physical thing? Because what we don't tend to have many times is you might get that, oh yes, my clothing was taken off and it's been put on wrong,
Yeah. Yeah.
which might be an indicator of a physical event. But then we have incidents where people are just seemingly, I don't explain and trying to explain, they took me through a wall
Mm.
and I looked behind me and I could see my body in the bed
Yeah.
asleep.
Yeah.
And you think, well, that's more of an out of body experience. But so it's a bit of both, I think, some cases. It's so profound.
Yeah, I think a good case that kind of touches on this is the Harry Turner case from I think 1979. I think he was a
Mm,
truck driver, and he woke up in the parking lot basically and couldn't remember how he got there. Couldn't remember any of the journey, and the same old thing when he checked his truck. Even though it said he had travelled X amount of miles, the petrol had not been used.
yeah,
He said though that he recalled eventually, a few days later, he recalled this massive white light surrounding him. He said he wasn't on board a ship, but he was in this area of nothingness. And after that, his memory became confused. He said something came into the truck cabin, and then he can't remember anything after that. In the days that followed, though, he found that he could see inside his own body. He found he could see inside his wife's body, like the
right.
skeletons and the
Yeah,
organs. He also said he was laying in bed and he could see through the ceiling. He could see the stars and things of that nature. So it's almost as if that experience he had changed how his mind
yeah,
saw reality. I mean,
yeah.
I think he ended quite tragically, actually. But I mean, it was just, amazing to think that through interacting with these entities, you could literally change how you perceive the world, or they
Oh,
could
yeah, yeah,
change how you
yeah.
perceive the
I
world.
mean, certainly some of them have not always ended up in, very positive things. The people have perished,
Mm.
apparently
Yeah,
to in
yeah,
regards to some of these profound experiences. And sometimes doctors have been absolutely confused as to why these individuals have suffered in such a way. It's so unusual. They couldn't conclude why or how. But
mm,
one thing is for sure is that there's certainly some aspects to this type of phenomena that I'm not going to say love and light. I'm not going to say something about. And what I'm going to say is there are moments when there are adverse effects
yeah, yeah,
that could cause problems with you. And you'd think an intelligence might know that, or an intelligence that just doesn't care about that. I don't know. But we would kind of understand, we'd say, well, don't come too close because it's a bit dangerous. But are they even bothered about that sometimes? I really don't know. People get treated differently in different countries as well regarding the
yeah.
alien abduction phenomena. Some of them, they're very harsh. Brazil, Puerto Rico, places like that.
Just
They're
going to say
terrible.
Brazil. There's lots of
Yeah.
fatalities there. The lead mass case, and
They're, they're really not treated very nicely
yeah,
at all.
it's there's a 77 island in. So I'm sure there was some deaths surrounding that as well. So that is
Yeah, I
interesting, that
know. And
actually.
then other places, it's like very touchy. Let's make sure we do things nice. And that's, again, is it because we're dealing with various different intelligences or just different agendas? I really, really do not know. But looking at it as a big whole picture of the alien abduction phenomena, one thing is for sure, the strange occurrence of missing time seems to be a prominent thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And even then was get a bit twisted up in regarding Jenny Randall's Oz Factor experience, where it's a busy road, it should be like really busy. There's
mm.
nobody there. It's the middle of the day. I'm seeing this craft in the sky. Where is everybody? Where's the birds? There's no birds. There's no sound.
Just gonna say,
People
yeah,
report this. It's like out of the norm environment suddenly at the time of these experiences, as if reality's changed or been altered in some way. It's pretty.
I've heard it described actually as if some people have described it as if they've been placed in a bubble,
Yes.
or as if the world's been frozen somehow. Like you said, there's not
Yeah.
only no one around, but there's no sounds,
Just
no
something
birds, no
odd. Yeah.
nothing. And so that, in a way, that makes a lot of sense because how many people are abducted while the partner sleeps at the side of them or while they're in a car
Yeah.
and they don't even realize they've gone.
That's
So
it.
it makes you wonder as well whether these abductions, whether there are different types of, abductions as well, because
Mm.
like I say, there's cases like that where they for all intents and purposes, they might have been abducted out of their body. But then you've
Yeah,
got abductions like Travis Walton, for example, who
very
physically went
physical.
missing for 5 days. So
Yeah.
are we speaking of different aliens, different interdimensional beings, or
Maybe there's multiple ways of being abducted. Let's put that on the table. Let's say,
yeah, yeah,
okay, well, some of them might take you physically, some of them might take you in a mental or, psychological manner. You'll be stuck to try and work out the difference because it's just like saying, you know, how dreams are so real sometimes. You can feel in dreams, you can experience
yeah,
all the things you
yeah,
can
yeah,
experience in life in a dream. So it's very hard to actually rule out the possibility that some psychological stuff, maybe it's a bit of both in some cases. It's very confusing,
yeah,
but the incidents in regarding time, though, I mean, people talk about being taken and lost time for 20 minutes or something.
mm,
Well, that 20 minutes, were they just gone for a minute or two and in our time it was 20 minutes? Or have they been gone for a whole day? And it's
sure,
only worked out 20 minutes of our time. There are ways of weird, strange things occurring regarding time with this. Like it operates sometimes outside the space time. So they take us and then they go about their business in this other area and then whatever. And time gets all skewed up or something. It's so strange. And we are always, people always asked, left there saying something about reality changed. It's not just
yeah.
a normal physical experience, something changed in reality. It just didn't make sense.
I think something to consider there is because we talk a lot about perception and how we perceive reality. So there's two things here. Perhaps whether you're abducted physically or out of body could depend a lot on your own makeup, genetic makeup, mental makeup, perhaps.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think we should consider that. But you know, there's got to be an agenda behind these alien
got to be.
abductions. There's got to be a reason that they're taking place.
Well, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and the
I
thing we're
mean,
missing time as well, it makes a certain amount of sense because when people are return from these abductions, they're not always returned to the exact same place. So that might
no, they don't.
mean they might
Yeah,
not always be returned to the
it's true.
exact same time. And just
Mm.
thinking off the top of my head, we don't know the mechanism of one, we don't know where they're going. We don't know the mechanism of how they're taken out or returned. So we talk about people having the clothes on back to front or the shoes are missing.
Yeah,
We assume that they're physically undressed. That could be just something like the old Star Trek
it could
teleportation
be.
thing. I mean,
We
sounds
just,
mad,
you
but
don't know. I mean, one thing for
yeah,
sure, when you talk about Travis Walton, this is probably one of the most significant experiences in regarding alien abduction on the planet. He
yeah,
wasn't taken back to where he was taken. He was literally dumped on the side of a road, the poor guy.
yeah, 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 yeah,
It gives you that feeling that they just want to get rid of him, get him off, get him off the ship or whatever. Is a problem. He's
yeah.
let's just and they just literally dumped him at the side of a road by the sounds of things. So it was like, yeah, let's just get rid of him. When others, it's like, yes, let's make sure we return them to the beds.
Yeah, yeah, it's
It's
true. Just like you
so
say,
weird.
sometimes it's absolutely spot on, and sometimes it's like always higgledy piggledy. So, I mean, that in
Yeah.
itself just throws another area of nuance, another thing to look at and try and figure
Well,
out.
it really does, and the guest that we have, so Dave Hodrien, he's done a lot of work in this particular area of the alien abduction phenomena.
Yeah,
In fact, there's not many people I would sort of say, yeah, let's pass this research on to. If somebody contacts me about alien abduction case, I'd rather give it to a specialist if I could.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
have done with Dave many times, and he's focused on this area because he's very knowledgeable about all these various aspects of the alien contactee and the alien abduction type phenomena. And I know he's done some great work, but the more you get in it, the more questions you arise over time.
yeah, definitely. I mean, like you say, the more I kind of write this sentence a lot. The more answers you get, the more questions that actually
It
come up.
just you
It
never
really
end.
is true.
It really does, and it's not a phenomenon that's gone away. It's just maybe not reported as often. It had its time. It's things spike, they spike. The
Yeah.
incidents got reported, spiked through the times of the X-Files TV show. But then you could say, well, how many UFO incidents reports were they when it spiked when Close Encounters came out? Well, of course it did.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
people's, imagination and belief and everything is all changed through media processes.
I think a
That
lot of
does
times
happen.
people just looking up more. really as simple
It
as that,
simply is. Or people have been sat on experiences and think, oh,
Yeah,
it's a bit more mainstream now. Now I'm going to report it. And this is when
yeah,
you get these spikes in things like that. I think it's been going on for a lot longer than what people imagine and what people think
yeah.
all over the world. It's not a new phenomenon. But you'd think whatever that they're trying to do, they would have established it by now, an advanced civilization. Whatever experiments they're doing and stuff, they would have kind of nailed it by now. But I don't know. Maybe it's just designed to be a long study program, just
It,
as you said before, like a bit like an alien zoo. We're in a petri dish, and it's a long study
yeah.
program.
It could be. I mean, I know that lots of people will do subscribe to that. I mean, I suppose one thing to consider. I mean, we all imagine these entities to be advanced, intelligent, and I'm sure they are in many ways. But the fact that there's still, if there is a hybridization program out there, and this is why these abductions are happening, we might imagine that they're quite fallible in many ways too, not just like literally, but mentally, and
Oh
perhaps
yeah,
they haven't cracked it. Despite all.
maybe. I think maybe there's the psychology of the human mind might be a bit more challenging than the genetics
Yeah,
of creation. But
absolutely.
but what are all these for? If they've been at this for such a long time and creating hybrids, then where are they? I mean, are they for somewhere else, or seeding somewhere
Possibly.
else, another planet? Or is it to save their own civilization? There's lots of hypotheses and theories about this,
Mm.
but they've been at this for such a long time. They must have a huge amount of arson of, the arsenal of just individuals, hybrids
Well,
that,
and I know David Jacobs would tell you that you touched on it there that the main reason why this is still happening is they just cannot mimic human behavior. The
could be
human
that.
psyche is so, for want of a better word, alien to them
Yeah,
that they just cannot do it. We have emotion, we have humor, we have nuance. These, from what Jacob's research suggests, these creatures are more have a hive mentality. They're more
yeah.
robotic,
They do
reactionary.
seem to be,
So
yeah. I
it
mean,
could be
maybe
that.
they're clones. Maybe they're
That's been
the
suggested
the
as
alien
well.
grey is like a worker bee, but for who or for what?
Well,
I'd
what's that?
rather
Yeah,
talk to the big guys to try and figure out what the hell is going on because we don't seem to be getting it from these other sort of drone type entities, biological drones. So maybe that, genetics and things like that. It's been on the cards for a very, very long time,
yeah, yeah,
especially regarding their own worker bees in the sense of speaking. So it's nothing new to them. But then, you know what? If you look at the grey and you think, well, how did he act? They're nullified and like not got emotions. They're just like worker bees, just going about the business. We're a bit more complex than that, aren't we?
yeah,
When it
yeah,
comes to
yeah,
sort of creating hybrids, maybe that they're trying to work us out. The psychological aspects of us, not the physical side, because I think cloning and things, science can do that. We know that
yeah,
because we cloned Dolly the sheep ourselves. But you know what? If you sit down with a scientist and say, "Well, did Dolly the sheep act like any other sheep?" Then we might get some answers.
yeah. No, I mean, I think you're right. I think you are correct there, and maybe we are more. They certainly would be able to clone from a physical standpoint, because we can, and so, but the human people talk about life existing all over the universe, and it probably does,
Yeah.
but maybe it's not as complex as humans.
No,
Maybe humans are,
maybe we are
yeah. I'm
pretty
not trying to say we're
complex.
the prime being, but there's
Yeah.
something clearly about us, though. If these, whether they're aliens or interdimensional beings or just non-human intelligence, there certainly seems to be focused on humanity. So there's a reason for that,
Yes.
and we could just be more special than.
Unless we all are already all the byproducts of them.
And there's
There
that's
is,
to
there's
consider.
that
Chuck
theory,
that
isn't
in
there?
as well, yeah. And there's just so much, like you say, there's so much to actually consider.
I
It just
know.
shows why this subject is so fascinating.
It really, really is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, it's going to be a great chat with Dave. I can't wait to speak to him. I'm sure you can't, Steve.
No, it'd be good to hear from
It,
Dave again. It's
yeah, it
great. His
really will.
research is really good. I'm
It
looking
really will
forward to
be a
it.
great show. Remember, you guys can watch that show. That goes out on Friday, the 19th of September, at 9 p.m. And so make sure you tune in for that. Make sure you check out the anomalyprojectpodcast.com. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and check us out on social media. Until next time, goodbye and take care.